the first game of the day, it was in a standalone position. We got all of our eyes on it. It was Notre Dame absolutely thumping Navy. 5 offensive possessions. We're in this, weird screen right here on YouTube. Led to 5 touchdowns. Too small, too little, too slow?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That is you live blog this game, Tom. I'm gonna let you get first word on it.
I tweeted at the very beginning of this game, watching it. I said, if Notre Dame wants to run the ball, touchdown, San Jose State. If Notre Dame wants to run the ball for 400 yards today, it can.
Yeah.
Because that offensive line was just absolutely blowing Navy's defensive front up on every single snap. It was just shoving them around. And that was really what the first 2 possessions were. They were just kind of running the ball down their throat with Audric Estime. And then they were like, well, we do have Sam Hartman, so we should probably show him off a little bit. So, they started throwing more after that. I just think, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you should be very happy with what you saw today. You probably shouldn't read too much into it because Navy is just they do not have the guys that could compete with that Notre Dame team. And then also you throw in Newberry's first game as a head coach, a new offense trying to work in some wrinkles against a team that is just bigger, stronger, and faster than they are. Getting behind early puts Navy in a spot where Navy is not comfortable being in, where they have to play from behind. So things really did snowball. I don't think Navy is as bad as the final score suggests, and I don't think Notre Dame is as good as the final score suggests. But I do think Notre Dame is good. I do think Sam Hartman played very well. They spread the ball around. We talked about how they did not have a ton of options last year in the passing game. It felt like it was Michael Mayer or bust. There were 8 dudes who caught passes today. They had young guys at the Jadens and Greathouse and Colsey who played, or not Colsey, but Thomas who played well. Colsey played well. That's a team that I think is a lot more explosive and a lot more dangerous this year than the Notre Dame team we saw last year. So that's very interesting. I will say the one concern I have, Navy did not have a quarterback who can exploit it, but Navy was getting guys open in that Notre Dame secondary, and Lavatai was just absolutely missing them. When they play Brendan Armstrong at NC State, or they get to the Ohio State game, or they're playing Klubnik and Clemson and those guys, that could really come back to bite them in the ass.
All right, I want to say the Navy piece first. They're definitely outgunned here, right? It was very clear when you match those 2 up on the field. I do think that Navy's going to make a bowl.
Ooh.
Get Navy to conference season. I think they have a real shot to do it. I think what they do plays a hell of a lot better when they're not physically overwhelmed. And one of the things you can tell when somebody's physically overwhelmed is go look at that rushing success rate, right? How often are they picking up what they want to, imposing their will? This is we'll talk about the sicko mode thing in a second, but this is sicko mode by Notre Dame. 66% rushing success rate, and that includes the garbage time and the backups they put in. That is ridiculous. Anything over 50 is really nice. 66% is just absurd. So if you didn't watch the ball game, maybe you did do the farmer's market thing, whatever. They really just pushed Navy around the entire game. Their people moved Navy's people. And then Navy's like, oh, we need to add more people because our people are getting moved. And Sam Hartman's like, oh, Thomas, Greathouse, cool. Let's do this thing. And you know what? Let's credit those guys. Let's put Mike on the screen here, our resident Notre Dame fan. Those guys actually made play. Now, a lot of them were pretty open. But those guys made some plays on some of those contested catches, which I did not see them making last year. But also, I didn't see them get open as much last year. So good job getting open. Good job making contested catches. And Sam Hartman, hey, man, knocking down the open threes, knocking at the layups. That's the start you wanted. Does it prove Notre Dame can hang with the really elite teams? No. Does it show that they're pretty clearly better than they were last year? I think so. I still have a couple questions about this team. We'll get to it. But I definitely think they're a better team than they were last year.
By the way, too, Marcus Freeman said something after the game that really stood out to me when he was asked about Sam Hartman. And he was saying the typical stuff, he played really well, blah, blah, blah. But he said the one thing he said that kind of he said he's really good at being able to read a defense before the snap and understand what he's looking at. which to me felt like an indirect kind of shot where Marcus Freeman was like, last year we had a couple of guys who had absolutely no idea what they were looking at when they looked at the defense across from them. And it's nice to have a quarterback with experience who can read the defense.
You mean the backup at Arizona State and the backup at Alabama?
Yeah.
The third stringer at Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so what is the ceiling for Notre Dame? Like, that's, we there's the, when you see it early, and we all saw it early, the game is different. Like the script changes, the way you call it changes. You mentioned, Bud, you defensively, you have to react differently. It opens things up. But if I'm gonna, be the cold shower here, what did we see from Sam Hartman? The stat line looks good. Can we nitpick? Because, Colsey's diving back for the out route. He's, Greathouse is kind of having to stutter step a little bit just to be able to pull in the score.
The one deep ball he was way late on,
like
in the end zone early. Yeah.
I mean, again, I think I might have said this on the chat, but it was like, I know he is going to end up with a fantastic stat line, but I still am like, okay. We'll see. And some of it might have been the calls, just sort of the way that it played out. They see the soft coverage. We're just going to go to the easy throws. Like I am never going to get that hung up on being able to just take the easy throws. But I don't know. What's the ceiling here for Notre Dame's offense?
Well,
35 points per game. I mean, like,
I think they could be like a top 15, top 12 opponent adjusted offense in the country.
Maybe. I think that is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, the offenses that you think are definitely better than them: Ohio State, Michigan, possibly Penn State. We'll see if Alara plays to the ceiling. Yes, North Carolina, Florida State, possibly Clemson. Right? Like if Riley gets them really turned around. USC, Oregon, Washington, probably Texas. But again, we got to see Texas. Like we all believe in you, but we kind of need to see that thing. And then a couple, like Georgia's probably still better. Probably LSU.
Carson Beck's about to win the Heisman.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So I think I just named off 10.
Yeah. They're going to be so much more difficult to defend this year because you have to defend the run in the pass.
Oh, Tennessee. Yeah.
You can't just load the box and force Drew Pine to do something. You actually have to defend the entire field again, which makes every offense better.
That's fair. And when even if you take Navy out and you put in another opponent on the schedule, that offensive line is still phenomenal.
Yes.
When are they tested?
Right? Yeah. Like against average FBS competition, against above average FBS competition, we're still talking about one of the best teams at the offensive line and being able to run that ball. And dude, Asime does such a good job of just getting downhill and making you pay. It is a fantastic ground game that they're able to build off of.
Yeah, on a weekly basis, except for the Ohio State and Clemson games, they should easily have their offensive line should easily win every matchup that they have. Those are the only
NC
2
State,
games.
Next game.
Oh, Chip, how do you do it? Is it 2 fingers, 1 finger? The little wolf pack thing?
Oh, it's this one. Yeah.
Okay.
I like it. I like NC State's defensive line. I think Notre Dame's offensive line is better.
Well, maybe I'm just saying that if we're ranking the defensive fronts, and let me count the linebackers in there as well.
That'd be the third best one they're facing.
Yeah.
They will face more passing downs against NC State than they will be comfortable with. And Hartman will need to convert some 3rd and 8 type situations, probably, unless NC State's offense, which, I mean, I think NC State's offense is a lot better, but, there's certainly some chance that, that they're not. And then maybe they'll just be able to run the ball. But they won't have a 66% rushing success rate in any game remaining this year, except for maybe next week, Tennessee State.
Yeah, that's right. It's not next week. They play Tennessee State, Eddie George.
The next FBS game. Yeah, is it Eddie George? Look at that.
Eddie George, head coach right there.
All right, Notre Dame fans.